Okay, so here is our final third video against Martin. This is part of our 2025 chess.com chess improvement challenge, supporting my beginner's improver article, showing how to get from 0 to 600, or at least giving some ideas, I should say. And this is all about battling the bots. A really good first step. Build some confidence, work on taking free stuff, and just, learning how to win the game. Now, so far in the first two videos, I've been playing pretty actively, pouncing on Martin's mistakes early, and just kind of showing how we might win the game. Now, let's play our third game, and this time I'm going to play maybe not the best moves in the world. Like, let's hang a bishop. And Martin may or may not take it, by the way. We'll see what he does. Okay, takes our first piece. Great. I'm going to play queen h5. And here I should take the pawn with check, but let's sacrifice our queen. Okay. Well, you don't really have time to think, Martin. I mean, you could think about your move, but it was forced. I sacked my queen. There's no legal response other than taking my queen. So, okay, I made two big blunders. I lost my bishop and I lost my queen in exchange for a pawn. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I want to give an example where we make early mistakes. And it's not the end of the world, right? Chess is a game of many opportunities. And especially when you're playing a bot or just a fellow inexperienced human, we're just simply not strong enough to prevent our opponents from getting at least a couple more chances to get back in the game. So when you blunder, don't rage quit. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, resurface, right? What can we do now? How can we try to build a better future? Well, let's go back to what we're trying to do in the opening. I want to develop my pieces. I want to fight for the center, and I want to castle my king. So I'll play knight f3, attacking the pawn, preparing to castle. Okay, well, Martin returns the favor. He moves his bishop here, so he's attacking a pawn. But always remember these diagonal attacks, they go in two directions. So we could capture with the pawn, which would be fine. And if I want to keep my pawn structure intact, meaning keeping all the pawns lined up, rather than isolating and doubling these pawns, I'll just capture with the knight. So there we go. We've regained a knight, or I should say a bishop, a minor piece, by capturing the bishop with our knight. Queen moves here. Any threat? Well, it's defending a pawn. Makes sense. And Martin brings up a good point for us to remember. You never lose when you learn. Well said, Martin. So now I'm going to castle, get my king to safety. And, okay, c6. Threatening anything? Nope. I think we're doing okay. Pawn moves as they move forward. I pointed out diagonally, that the pawn is protecting d5 and b5. So if I move my knight here, then the pawn would capture my knight. But notice when pawns move forward, imagine where sort of the phantom diagonal squares that the pawn no longer protects, meaning when the pawn was on its original square, it's guarding both b6 and d6. But when it moves forward, think about the space left behind. Now, b6, not such a big deal because it is protected by another pawn. But notice d6, because both of these pawns have moved, is a weak square or a pothole. And my knight is looking at the edge of the board or kind of peering over the cliff there. So when in doubt, our pieces should have a magnetic attraction toward the center. This is where we want to develop our pieces. And I'm noticing one attacker against e5 and one defender. Tie right now is going to the defense. But I see a way that I can activate my knight, attack this pawn, and I'm dreaming of delivering a fork to attack the king and the queen. So don't tell Martin, but I'm going to attack the pawn, and I'm dreaming of a fork. So I'm going to play knight to c4. And let's see what he does. Attacking the pawn. He ignores it. I'm attacking a square, a fork. He ignores it, and he creates a threat, taking a pawn. Now, I'm so far behind, I don't want to defend my pawn, attack his knight, and give Martin a chance to wake up and not allow this fork, right? So I could attack the knight, defend the pawn, but then maybe the queen moves out of harm's way, or Martin plays some other reasonable move. So we're down on material, right? We're still behind. So I'm going to deliver this fork, attacking the king and the queen. The king needs to move. King probably should have tried to defend the queen. It didn't. I'm looking at one more way to attack the king with check, but then I would lose my knight. Don't forget the point that when you attack something, it's not only defending. It's not always the case. Yeah, the knight moved out of check, but now it's also combining defense with attack. My knight is hanging, so I will take that queen. And now I'm dreaming of a new fork. Look at that. Let's see if he lets me do it. Luxurious random pawn move. I could take a pawn with check. I could deliver a fork. I could attack the knight. Well, hey, one good fork deserves another. Let's keep on, forking the king with check and the rook. King moves away, and I'll take that rook. Thank you very much. So just like that, don't call it a comeback. We've been here, right? We're still fighting, but we were way behind in material. Okay, I'll call it a comeback. I was down a bishop and a queen, and now all of a sudden we're up material, right? We captured a queen, we captured a bishop, now we captured a rook. So, okay, this pawn is under fire, so I could try to think about how to defend it. And one way I might do that is c3, but then maybe the knight would jump in here and take advantage of the space left behind. Well, that's not a huge deal, but on the other hand, I'm not too worried about giving up that pawn, and I would love to open up my bishop. And here I have one attacker against one defender, the central flag or pawn in the mountain. And so my knight is guarding d4, as is black's pawn. So I have one defender, one attacker. I'm going to ignore that my pawn is hanging and create my own threat with d4 and also awaken my slumbering bishop. And just on time, look at that. Martin plays g5. And when you see a pawn in your face and you say, hey, I have a knight here, it's kind of tempting to take. That wouldn't be a bad move, because if I take the pawn with the knight, my bishop is defending the knight. But remember, a couple things. New move, new piece. I'd rather develop a piece I haven't moved than continue to move a piece that's already in the game and doing well. And I want to look at my most forcing moves first. Knight takes pawn is good, but if I reverse the order, the knight could be the attacker, the bishop could be the defender. Well, let's make the knight the defender and the bishop the attacker, and now we gain a tempo because we're attacking the king. King was unable to capture the bishop there because of our knight. And now what should I do? Well, my knight's hanging out in the corner. I could take a pawn. That's tempting. But let's bring our knight back to the rest of civilization here and pay the king a visit while we do it. Another attack against the king. King moves f7. Okay, great. Any more checks? How do I keep attacking the king? And any free material? Yeah, let's combine both. Knight takes pawn, wins a pawn, attacks the king. Okay, now the king moves there. And what should we do? Okay, I've been leaving my pawn hanging for a long time. Now I'm ready to move it and to attack the knight. Pawns are not pieces, so I love to attack pieces with pawns. 1 point attacks 3. And here, okay, this is a very dangerous move. The knight leaps forward. And knights are so tricky, right? We were able to deliver some nice forks and capture a queen and a rook. And now, when you're playing your own game, right, when you lunge forward or leap forward with a knight, always ask yourself, do I have escape squares, right? Now, the knight is attacking this rook. The knight's attacking our powerful rook in the corner. So we need to look out. But on the other hand, this is a one-move threat, meaning, yeah, you attack my rook, but what's the follow-up? I don't see any exit strategy at all. I don't see any safe way for the knight to get back out of our camp. So I'm going to combine defense, which is don't allow a 3-point piece to take our 5-point piece, with attack. I'm going to attack that knight. And there really isn't a good way to escape, because I would just take the knight. The knight could have captured our pawn, but then I would have captured that way. So I'm about to take the knight. My opponent moves the knight here. I don't see any new threats. There's no rush. The knight's not moving anywhere. I'm going to take the knight because I'm up so much material now, right? I'm going to capture the knight with check and see what happens. Okay, rook takes, fair enough. I'd love to somehow put a knight there and fork those two pieces, but that's not happening yet. And now I look at the rook. Any new threats? I don't see any. Any new captures for me? I don't see any. I'll take that free knight. And now we're up tons and tons of material. And here comes sort of the next phase. How do we win this game, right? We're up a lot of material. And rooks being behind pawns are really nice because it's like lighting a fuse. A fuse, and this rocket is just going to shoot up into the sky, and it's going to be supported by our pawn, or the pawn is going to be supported by our rook. So a rook behind a passed pawn can be really dangerous. Let's go up the board. Now remember, I called the f-pawn the forget about it pawn in the first video, but it doesn't mean never move the f-pawn, but it does mean be very careful. Every time you move the f-pawn, if you're castled or your king is here, you open some lines against your king. But here we're in an endgame. There's no way for my opponent to attack me because I opened up some lines against my king. So let's just keep pushing. Now the rook and the pawn defend each other. If I play f6, I only have one defender and there's two attackers. The king is also defending. Now, this turns out to be a good move for a tactical reason, but let me first throw in knight e8. Attack the king. Okay, king now combines defense with attack. It moves out of harm's way and attacks our knight. So I want to slide here and attack the bishop. Looks good, but I always do a blunder check. On this side of the board, we're very happy about this decision. But if I play here, is that a safe square? Look out for the rook. Okay, so I'm going to acknowledge, maybe I didn't play the best move in the world. I'm just going to move my knight to the only square that appears safe. If I move here, the rook would take me. I move here, king captures. Let's just move back to c7 and see what happens. Okay, moves the rook here, threatening a pawn. But hey, that pawn's defended. A pawn's best friend is another pawn. So I'm feeling good about that pawn chain there. And now I'm going to keep on pushing on. f6. Okay, king moves away. I want to push here. The king can't take because I have two things defending. So let's push. Okay, king moves there. Feeling really excited. Knight attacking the king looks great. But think about king CPR. If the king runs, then I promote the pawn and I feel great into a queen. But what about C? Capture my checking piece. Okay, that's annoying. My pawn is pointing to e8, basically saying, hey, you want to park a knight there? I've got its back. Well, let's do that. Knight e8, attacking the rook. Rook moves away. Okay, fair enough. What should I do next? Well, there's a number of ways to play this. This rook keeps sliding back and forth. It's so annoying. And so I'm going to offer a trade because equal trades are no longer equal. And he's kind enough to trade. I take back. So now we remove the rook. There's the bishop staring at a different pawn. So you went from staring at this pawn to staring at another. Not the best move in the world. If I take this pawn with check, notice I'm leaving behind my f-pawn. Is there another way to do the same thing without losing our passed pawn that's one square away from promoting? By asking that question, I can now move the other knight, attack the king, kick it out of that promotion square. The king is blockading our pawn. Well, I've got this knight infinity circle, right? The knights are defending one another, so we're doing well. And the knight is also guarding f8, so we're going to push that pawn, and now we can promote the pawn, kind of a chess touchdown, running all the way to the end zone. Now we're going to promote to a powerful queen, attack the king. Okay, so here we are. We're so close to winning the game. The knights are defending each other. Notice the pawn guards these squares. King can't move there. The the king has zero safe squares, nowhere to move, right? Queen guards that square, queen and knight guard that one, knight and queen guard there, pawn and queen guard there, pawn guards there, queen guards there, and our knight is guarding the other knight. So therefore, all of our pieces are working together. We need to invite one more piece to the attacking party. If my rook could just float to f6, that would attack the king and deliver mate. How do we get there? How do we turn our dream into a reality? Go backwards. We start at the end of the maze and then go to the start. Aha, I can go here and then there. So I play rook f2. What is Martin going to play? Another bishop staring at a pawn move, okay? And now I'll bring my rook up the board and deliver checkmate. King is unable to capture the rook thanks to the queen and the knight, and a really harmonious example of all of our pieces working together. So quick recap, I wanted to play some kind of silly moves at the beginning of the game just to point out, hey, we're all going to make mistakes. You know, I'm playing as a national master. I have a lot of experience. But when you're playing and taking your first steps in the game, you're going to make mistakes. And I still make mistakes all the time too. But my point is, don't get frustrated. Keep playing. Keep asking questions. So I lost a queen and a bishop all within my first 4 moves. So not the best opening. But on the other hand, resurface. What can I do now? We can't control the past. Let's focus on now and try to build a better future. So I played knight f3. I attacked the pawn. He played a surprising move. And notice I didn't just say, hey, I'm going to win a pawn. I want to see what's going on with the last move. So here I captured the bishop. I castled, and I pointed out that once that pawn moved forward, look at the squares left behind. So I played knight c4 to attack not just e5, but to threaten a fork. So we were able to regain our material with that fork. One good fork deserved another. So there we go. I was able to win all of my material back and then gain a rook. And all of a sudden, the game completely turned around in our favor. Notice I fought for central control. I opened a window for my bishop, and I developed a new move, or a new piece with a new move. New move, new piece is our mantra. Attack the king, and we just kept on attacking on. Attack the king, captured a pawn, continued to attack the king. I played c3, and the big lesson here to remember is before you leap forward, always ask, what's my exit strategy? And when you make a single move attack, right, you attack a rook for one move, ask yourself, what happens if they defend? Do I have a follow-up? So maybe black should have played knight a6. Not a perfect move, but at least the bishop has its back. Here, the knight lunged forward to a square of no return. I played rook c1. If the knight moved to either of these squares, the pawn would capture it. If the knight captured this pawn, well, then we'd capture the knight with this pawn. And after here, I was given a new capture. And since I'm up so much material, right, I'm up a full rook. I just removed the knight. Fair trades are no longer fair. I captured the knight. And here, f4. In the middle game, going into the end game, we can think about rolling this f-pawn forward. The rook lit the rocket, shooting up the board. This pawn became very dangerous. And sure enough, didn't that become a queen later, right? So the rest of the game, I just kept on pushing on. I made a point that f6 was possible, but I didn't play it. The reason it's possible is because if the rook captures, now the rook and king are in forking distance of my knight. But I thought, to keep it simple, let's attack the king. And after king f8, really important thing to remember, I don't have a good follow-up. This wasn't the best move in the world. That's okay. Don't get frustrated. What can I do now? Well, I want to move my knight to safety. I did a blunder check. I don't want to lose my knight that way. So I just repeated a move. I went back to c7. Knight is safe, lives to attack another day. And after rook d6, I push this pawn forward, restricting the rook, supporting the pawn is the rook there. And after the pawn move or the king moved away, check. We just kept that rocket blasting up the board, attacks the king, and now came the key moment. Pawns point to great squares for pieces. Knight e8, attack the rook. When the rook slid over to h6, now the knight has returned to civilization. It can support my rook in trading off black's last major piece. And so here, if you're defending, when in doubt, don't trade. Martin should have just tried to hang tough, but admittedly, it's hard to find a good move here because I can attack the king and things are looking bad. But once the rooks are traded, I was very happy to end the game by promoting the pawn into a queen. The knight infinity circle did its thing. And now that the king has a grand whopping total of 0 safe squares, that means all of your pieces and pawns are doing a great job freezing the king. Well, look for pieces that aren't doing anything. This is a team game. Get all of our pieces to work together. I thought about the dream square here. How do I get there? I move backwards. And that is how we defeated Martin for a third time. So great work, everybody, playing through this analysis. Really appreciate it. And this is an example of how you might beat a bot 3 times. I don't know if I'll record videos for every single bot, but I did want to give at least some encouragement and some examples of how you might beat your first bot thrice, a hat trick against Martin. And feel free to go through these games again and use them as a model. And I officially give you permission to go out there and blunder, not intentionally. I don't mean blunder your bishop or your queen on purpose, but be flexible. Give yourself room to grow. You're not going to make perfect moves, nor will your opponent. And chess is a game of many opportunities. The main thing is mentally resurface. Don't worry about what happened a move ago or 10 moves ago. Focus on now and how to build a better future. So great work, everybody. And I'll see you in the next video.